Alright, so if you are going to be getting the expansion to Cuba, the El Presidente expansion, what you're going to get is you're going to get this additional board up here that adds to the game. So where you had your little cards before, they have spots for them that carry on onto the next board. And you're going to get additional cards for this. So you're going to get 2 additional cards for each number, 2 additional 4s, 2 additional 3s, 2 additional 2s, and 2 additional 1s. So you can either mix these into the piles and switch things out where you still have 6 rounds, or you can go for 8 rounds and just add these to there, and then you can play for 8 rounds if you want. Additionally, you're going to get some new building tiles, which I'll go over. You're going to get a new token, which I'll go over that. You're going to get a couple new delivery ships, 6 of them, and I'll give you better images of those. And you're going to get this car, which I'll explain in a moment, and then you're going to get additionally a bunch of new cards too that go up here that you're going to play, and so I'll explain that. Alright, so just looking at the add-on board here, I'm going to talk about the cards that get added here, which is the main part of the addition to the game. You're going to get 2 donkey cards, which I'll explain those, and then you're going to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different character cards. And depending on the number of players you have is how many donkey cards you're going to use. So essentially what's going to happen, let's say we're playing a 4-player game, you're going to use 1 donkey card, the other one will just be removed, and you're going to take these different cards and you're going to mix them up, and you're going to take one out and set it to the side, and you're not going to use it this time, and then you're going to mix in the donkey card into the stack, and so you'll mix these all up, and then you'll turn them up at the top of the board here. Alright, so you have these up here, and what's going to happen is, in addition to having your typical cards that you have, you know, your worker, your tradeswoman, your architect, your mayor, and your foreman, in addition to having all that, you're going to be required to take an additional action. So in a 4-player game, you're going to have to either choose on one of your turns to play this card or whatever card it is. So let's say it's someone's turn and they say, okay, this card, it gives you the star player token. So let's say you want to be the star player next time. So you take this card, and it's going to free up a space up here. And as the game goes on, other people take cards. So let's say someone takes this card, and this card. All right, and then when everyone sends people to pass bills and everything, and what's going to happen is at the end, you have the El Presidente's car, and what's going to happen is that is going to move to where the remaining card is, and you're going to do that action. If this donkey had been here, he just moves past it. It never stops at the donkey, so it would just move past it. He would stop here, and whatever this bonus action is, each player would get to enact this bonus action. Now, what would happen is then a new round would start. You would take the card that wasn't used, you'd put it in there. Additionally, the dancer always has to be used. So the dancer and the donkey are going to be in it, so you might just set those aside for a moment. Take the cards, you'll shuffle them up again, remove one, and then take these cards and put them in there, and shuffle them up again, and then you'll pull them out here. And the round will go as before. You have your 5 choices of cards to use, plus your 6 action, which will be up here. So let's say somebody takes this card and these 2 cards, all right? Then what's going to happen is this is going to move on over down the track, and then this time each person is going to get to do this special action. So that's essentially what this additional board does. It gives you these different special actions. This part down here is what I was saying, just where the extra bills go. You have your little wooden tokens, which can go in these little squares here. And that's pretty much it. So I'm going to go over the different cards, the new chip, the different buildings, and new cards, and what each space on here does. Okay, so these are the two donkey cards. As I mentioned before, you will either use both of these, one of these, or what have you. It just depends on the number of players you have. Right, so this one is the Harbor Master. So for your 6th action, it doesn't need to be your 6th one anyway, for one of your actions, card plays, if you choose this card, you can switch 2 of the ships in the harbor, and you can switch their positions. This is the Musician, and when you use him, you are going to get 2 money, or $2, or what have you. This is the Revolutionary, and if you choose this card, you automatically get 1 victory point. This is the Day Laborer. If you choose this card, you automatically get to store all of your products, so citrus fruit, sugarcane, and tobacco. If you choose him, let's say you choose him on your 3rd turn, and then on your 4th turn you get more products, those cannot be added. It's only what you have in possession when you choose the card. This is the Lawyer. If you choose the Lawyer, you pay 1 peso, and you get to use one of your building abilities immediately. Okay, so here we have on the board where the El Presidente car goes. If it lands on one of these spaces, I'm going to tell you what it is. So this first space here, this one is where you have to keep 2 of your cards to go to legislation. So, typically in the game Cuba, you have 5 cards, you play 4, you keep 1, and that 1 that you have is your votes in the legislation. Well, this requires you to keep 2 cards to send to vote on legislation instead of just 1. Okay, this spot here, what it does is it just automatically passes all 4 pieces of legislation. So if the car stops on this spot, all 4 pieces of legislation are going to pass. Okay, so this spot here, it takes effect in the next turn. So what it is that if someone plays their foreman card, everybody gets to move their worker at the same time. So, someone can play their foreman card, and then everybody moves the worker, and someone else can play a foreman card, and everybody gets to move their worker again. So it's just, like it says, you get to move your worker for every time someone plays the foreman card. Okay, so if the car stops on this spot, what it is saying is if you pay 1 peso, you can instantly build over one of your buildings. So if you have a building that you've built on your property and you don't really want it anymore, or you don't use it, you can build over it with a new building right there. So, that is that spot. This spot, if the car stops here, the person who's in first place will lose 2 victory points. And the last spot here is if the car stops here, everybody can choose one of the pieces of merchandise or what have you, either rum or cigar or tobacco or what have you. But it has to come out of the stock on the board. It can't come out of the bank supply. It has to come off the board. And that's the last spot. All right, so this is a number 1 act. If you enact this piece of legislation, you're going to have to pay 1 peso for every 10 points you have. This is also a piece of legislation, and this requires players to pay 6 pesos. You have to pay pesos as high as the current tax rate. So, if the current tax rate is 3 or whatever, then you would have to pay 3 pesos. This duty requires you to pay 1 resource of your choice and 1 product of your choice. All right, if you enact this subsidy, what it is if you look at the top, if you're in first place, you're going to get 1 victory point. If you're in second place, 2 victory points. Third place, 3 victory points. Fourth, 4, and fifth, 5. So it's kind of like a catch-up mechanic. Or this piece of legislation for each unit of rum and or cigars that you own, you're going to get 1 victory point for them. So, if you have 2 rum and 3 cigar boxes, then that's 5 points. 2 and 3 is 5. Legislation is a control act. So on the board, you know how if you play like the tradeswoman card or the architect or the mayor, you could either use the ability or you could place some of those little black markers on the board to, you know, get money or get one good or product or something like that. This just disables that extra choice that you have, so you can't use the black markers to take, you know, money or, you know, one product or what have you. You can only use the card for what it says on the card. And this is the Export Act. So if you are supplying a ship, for each piece of product you put on the ship, you're going to get 2 victory points. All right, so this is a new building. This is the casinos. And the ability is you can either pay 5 pesos to get 2 victory points or pay 2 victory points to get 5 pesos. Okay, this building is the customs office. So what this allows you to do is you can take one of your resources and you can load it onto one of the ships. However, you don't get any points for it. It just allows you to block a spot so that somebody can't, you know, maybe load, let's just say a bottle of rum on the 3 victory point spot on a ship. All right, this is the beach cafe. So essentially what it says is it can be used anytime you want to do a second action with one of your cards, including without a foreman. Also, if you want to use any of those special double powers that somebody has where, you know, instead of doing what it says on the card, you do what it says on the board, you can do that as well a second time. All right, so this is the statue. It doesn't really do anything. It's kind of like the monuments in San Juan. Essentially what it is, if it's on your field, at the end of the game, you get 1 additional victory point per building you've built. So instead of getting 2 victory points per building at the end of the game that you have on your piece of land, you're going to get 3. Okay, so this is the newspaper publishing house, and this is comes with that extra token that I showed you. So what this does is if you use this building and then you take that extra newspaper token, the little smaller token you see there, and you place it on one of the pieces of legislation, if that piece of legislation does not pass, you're going to get 1 peso and 1 victory point. So even so, you know, if you're the person who's choosing which bills pass and you have put this on one of the bills, then you cannot pass that. You can choose to not pass that one, and then you're going to get a peso or a victory point. If you're not the one choosing the legislation, then if somebody else just goes ahead and doesn't choose to enact that piece of legislation, then you're still going to get the 1 peso and 1 victory point. All right, so this is one of the new ships. You get to transport, resources on this ship. So, you know, all the ships, you have to transport product. This is one ship that allows you to transport resources instead. There's just, 5 orange product pieces on this one, 1 red, 1 green, 1 cigars, 1 orange, 1 white. 3 orange, 2 green, 3 green, 2 white, and 3 white, 2 orange.